cried the sparrow.
You're listening to the Sailing into Oblivion podcast, where we sit down with everyday people who do extraordinary things. I'm your host, Jerome Rand.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Today, I think it's day 9. Yeah, we're coming into the tail end of day 9. Oh, wow. Last 24 hours has been a bit of a mission, but also with great reward. Yesterday, eventually, the winds dropped off. Not so much that we couldn't sail if it was flat, but because the sea state, there was some ugly old swell coming down from, I think, the northwest, and it was wrecking my day. It was wrecking my day like you wouldn't believe. And eventually, I was like, we're just, I'm sitting there sailing, and it was pretty late at night. It was a beautiful night. I mean, the stars, everything, absolutely stunning. And then a couple of these clouds showed up, and they kind of come up on the horizon. They didn't look threatening at all. I mean, it's dark because it was basically a new moon, or almost new moon, and no big deal, like, whatever. Just kind of keeping an eye on them. But as these clouds do sometime, essentially the winds picked up just a little, like a smidge. I was like, ooh, got to crack off the wind, heading more south, and then just the slightest sprinkle, not even enough to close the hatch, and essentially within 15 minutes the wind was gone. And it was just such a bummer because we were just able to hold, that the swell wasn't overriding the wind's grip or the sail's grip on the wind. Regardless, it was one of those things where I was like, oh man, here we go. And I knew I was in for it. According to the forecast, I was headed right into big strip of high pressure. I knew. I mean, it was inevitable, but it was one of those where I don't know. I kind of hoped that we were going to make it through the night, or at least later into the night, maybe, get some quiet sleep. And because I know as soon as I fire up that engine, it is so hard to sleep on this boat. It's so loud. So, anywho, we did what we had to do. Fired up the engine, doused the jib, doused the staysail. Just had the main up. And we're kind of motoring away, and I'm a little peeved. I'm a little annoyed for sure. But at the same time, we're making way. Unfortunately, that swell was still sticking around, so it made the ride a little uncomfortable. And I'm using this little tiller pilot thing, which is made for like a 20-foot boat or something. I only use it when I motor, and I can only really use it even motoring when the seas are flat because, Sparrow's got a heavy helm and can rip one of those things pretty much right in half. And, come on, we got to get more westing in. Sorry, I'm just, the wind right now, we're hard on the wind right now, and it's wavering between us sailing pretty much southwest and then due south, and I want to go southwest. Meh. I'm not getting my way, and it's all right because I'm trying to focus on the things that are awesome, so that the things that are not going really well don't eat away at my brain to the point where it's making me upset. Anyway. Yeah, so we just got the main up. It's slatting like crazy. Tiller pilot's holding its own. So we're doing good there. And eventually, I'm trying to busy myself, like cleaning stuff and like doing anything to sort of take my mind off the fact that we're going to be running an engine probably for the entire night, which just to me is an absolute nightmare. Now, normally without trying to make it to a place at a certain time or without inclement weather coming into a region or anything like that, it would have been no issue. I would have taken all the sails down. I would have drifted all night and happily rolled away myself to sleep and gotten a really good night's sleep, and then that would have been that. Can't really do that at this point. Obviously, at that point, I was still gunning, hopefully going to make it a day or so before Thanksgiving so that I could put Sparrow to bed and then rush off to be with some family. That does not look like it's going to happen, which is pretty unfortunate, but it is what it is. The weather doing what the weather does, it's just a bit of a stretch. And even if I pull in on Thanksgiving Day, it's going to take me a little while to, can't just like tie off Sparrow and be like, all right, see you in a couple months. It's like, no. You gotta tickle the old girl. Give her all the TLC she deserves for keeping me safe and sound and putting up with the beating and bashing that happened on this trip. But the other thing is that around the night of the 27th, and this is still pretty far off in the forecast, so it is quite possibly going to change. I hope it changes. But basically, the winds start peeling out of the north and then switch and blow pretty hard out of the east and northeast to the tune of like 25 plus knots over a huge swath of like the trade winds kind of belt and everything. And the problem with that is that if I don't make it to Florida and into that inlet before that happens, like even if there's like any doubt that I'm going to be able to do it, I have to come up with a different plan. I got to hold up in the Bahamas somewhere for a couple of days because those inlets get closed out. It's not safe to go in those. It's not even possible sometimes. And the idea of sitting out at sea for 2 or 3 days, weathering that one, sounds absolutely miserable. Yeah, we'd have to basically pull in somewhere, maybe the Abacos or something like that, and just find either a nice little anchorage where it's super protected, or get ourselves a little dock slip. Hopefully, we don't have to do that because I don't know if you have to get your cruising permit or if they do a thing where they give you permission to be in there for like a week or just a couple of days. Kind of thinking they don't. But we'll see. Anyway, so those are the two sort of obstacles that are kind of I'm facing down at this point and are kind of giving me a little bit of, I don't want to say stress, but it'd be nice if I didn't have to worry about that. If it was like, no, weather's going to be great. It's going to be standard easterlies turning into southeasterlies, turning into southerlies as you get closer to Florida, like super easy peasy. But, the world's not like that sometimes, so you just got to accept it. But back to what was going on before, essentially motoring away, and finally I had to, once everything was all good. So I did the oil change, oil filter, and all that sort of stuff during the day yesterday, which definitely needed to be done, and fired up the old engine. Once everything was running good for the first hour, it sounded good, temps were good, oil pressure was good, all that sort of stuff. I was just like, wow, I gotta put my ear pods in and just not turn them on to noise canceling, but they have this other setting where you can still hear what's going on, but it tones it down quite a bit. And I just threw like a book on tape sort of thing in the background so that essentially I could still hear the murmur of the engine, but it was dulled. And then I could obviously hear if the AIS alarm or the engine alarm was going to go off, because those are my main concerns, the overheating alarm and then the AIS for sure. But I was able to actually lay down and get a couple of sessions of sleep It's just, I don't know. I'm so not used to motoring for hours and hours and hours, especially at night, that it's one of those where anytime I used to do it, I just was like, nope, can't sleep. Gotta monitor the whole time. Now, thankfully, with the engine running a whole lot better than it used to, which is nice, and my position currently, is essentially halfway in between the Bahamas and Bermuda. There is nobody out here. It is fantastic. I've only seen like one ship, something like that. Way off, barely even saw its superstructure. Everybody else is going from essentially Hatteras down to the Bahamas, or out to Bermuda, and then Bermuda down to the islands. It's like no man's land out here. I'm kind of stuck in the middle of nowhere, which is great. So I can relax a little bit, but so we just kept plugging away because I'm trying to, I was like, well, if I motor all night, we're gonna get an extra like 50 miles because we're doing like 4.5 or something like that. And yeah, we did it. We just plugged away, got some sleep, woke up in the morning, still just dead calm, and got tricked a couple times where I was like, I think there's enough wind. And then I set up everything and shut down everything, did the role reversal, which is, it's not easy on Old Sparrow to basically get Mongo back up and running, put the wind blade back in. That doesn't take too long. That's not a real big deal. But then with the engine, shut it all down, shut all the valves, close that, do a bunch of these things. I have to climb in there and all that sort of stuff. It's enough of an effort to be like a pain in the butt. It's not just a button that I get to turn off. And then I set the sails, obviously, put the jib, put the staysail up. And I'm like, oh, man, we almost got it. And Mongo just couldn't quite track. And I was just like, man, what? And so I had to reverse it all yet again. And then it was maybe like half an hour, 45 minutes before the winds actually picked up. And I'm kind of cruising along, and we're hard on the wind. It's light in the beginning, which is, totally fine. Super flat seas at this point. So we heeled over a bit, but it wasn't really affecting things. But then as the wind actually picked up and we started heeling over quite a bit more, like 15 degrees, maybe even more than that, I was like, man, there just feels like there's a ton of pressure on the rig. And I was using my jib, which is probably like 110, 120%, something like that. And it was just, I don't know, it just felt like there was a lot more heeling pressure on the rig than there should have been. And I was kind of thinking, I was like, oh, wait a minute. Hey, I think I have these like tiny little jibs that I haven't used in, years. Because I went and organized everything back when I was up in TJ's before I launched back in, 2024. And labeled everything and all sorts of stuff. So I kind of go up forward. And I reach into one of the bags. I'm like, oh, okay, there's one of them. And I see right on the clue, and all it says is blade. And I was like, blade, that's got to be tiny. Ooh, I like the sound of that. That sounds like a really cool sail. And it's super old, super used. I think I was able to get these from a fellow West sailor on the West Coast. Sorry if I have forgotten who it was. It was somebody I found through, I think, Mike Poor. But either way, I doused the jib, lash that sucker because I know I'm going to use it. But I think that jib, it's just the shape of it and the way it flattens out. I think it's one of those where you're getting a little bit of lift out of it, but then you're just getting a lot of pressure. I don't know. It just feels like the boat heels way more. It just doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem right. And I think it's better for close reaching or beam reaching and broad reaching than it is actually like close hauled, like hard nose, right into the wind sort of thing. And so I was like, I doused that. And we were actually doing just fine with the main and the staysail. But I was kind of like, well, I brought it out here. And it's a beautiful day. I mean, it's sunny. Again, the seas are flat. It's gorgeous. It's warm. I'm getting a tan. I love it. And I I was like, yeah, well, let's go throw that sucker up. And we go throw it up, and it's old, like I said. So, it's got a lot of chatter in its luff and its foot and stuff. But it's got one of those really neat cuts where the clue is really high up. And, it's kind of shaped like a traditional, I don't know if you'd call it a Yankee. I don't know. I don't know all these terms. I'm just exposing my ignorance to nautical history and nomenclature there. Unfortunately, I'm gonna try not to relish in my ignorance, like I do with the whole heave to, hove to kind of thing. But in any event, it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you can either just admit that you're kind of a moron and move on and accept it, or you can try and do something about it. Maybe I had to try and do something about it. I think maybe one of those books that it's all terminology, nautical terminology, might not be a bad thing to have aboard Sparrow going into the future. And shout out real quick to G's Bees. They said they liked the little constellation segment, the new segment, which is cool. I already got feedback. I really appreciate it. And I do want to give them a shout out because when we did the show in Indianapolis, they showed up with 2 gifts. 2 of the most unusual but awesome gifts ever. One was one of those heat gun things that is a laser that you point it at certain things and it'll tell you exactly how hot that surface is. Only problem is, it's sitting in its box up in northern Michigan, and I forgot it. So I don't even have it on the boat yet. But rest assured, it's coming right back down with me when I come back in January. That's a fact. But they also gave me a pound of G's Bees honey. And I don't know if they sell this stuff or if they just make it for fun and give it to friends, but they have like their own hive and stuff. Super cool. Super cool. I love gifts like that. Really do appreciate it. So shout out to them. Now I've completely lost. Oh yeah. So I got this sucker up there, and because it's such a tiny, high aspect sail, so it's really tall and skinny, but it's like not wide or anything. Boom. It's like a game changer. So it balances out the rig, the mainsail and just the staysail. Obviously the main's way, way more powerful. Staysail needs a little extra, and I throw this thing up, and it just all of a sudden, boom, we are cooking. And it's funny because we're heeling over, maybe not quite to the extent we were before, but it feels different. It feels as though the pressure isn't on the rig pushing sideways. The pressure is just in the sails pulling us forward. And we are just heeling over, if that makes any sense at all. I think, the big thing that kind of caught my attention was that I've sailed a lot on this boat. I've owned I don't know how many different cuts and shapes of head sails that are all made for different boats. I always have used sails for those. The only new sails I've ever had is a new main and a new staysail. I've had 2 sets of those. Everything else, I just buy them used. And so I'm always kind of at the whim of like, I don't know, this cut works and how old this thing is and blah, blah, blah. But those are kind of the only ones I can afford because I got to have so many of them. And it's like I could pay like $300, $400, $500 for one of these things, or I could get one made for a couple thousand. Oh man, you gotta be kidding me. Plus they get pretty worked up there. I'm not gonna lie. The thought of like raising and lowering, like if I had 3 brand new, North sail, different size jibs, like a drifter, a jib, and then a blade. Yeah, that would be really sweet. But holy cow, that'd be a lot of work it's not like I can just crunch them all down. Well, maybe I could. I would have to get lighter weight material, obviously, than these other 2, but whatever. Fact is, I'm still learning about this boat, and I'm still learning little techniques and things like that. I've always said once you think you got it all wrapped up, that's when you really know that you're actually wrong. And, especially when it comes to sailing, it really is one of those things where I don't care how long you've been doing it, you're always going to learn something if you're paying attention. And it was cool. It was really cool to be like, oh, now I have a new arrow in my quiver sort of thing. It's like, wow, okay, I got the blade. And I think there's one other one that I'm going to have to take a look at. I don't know if I'll take a look at it on this trip or not, but I think there's one that's just a little bit bigger than the blade. So it would give me a little extra, because again, all I'm trying to do is balance the boat and have the right amount of sail to produce the right amount of power so that the boat isn't super stressed and we're moving at our desired speed. So, I don't know. That's my little story from that. But yeah, ever since I put that up, and that was like mid-morning or whatever, we've just been blasting away. We're still, man, our angle is off, but that's okay. It is going to switch. We do have to get south. We have to more get to the west, but if I tack, we end up heading like northwest. It's just obnoxious how far off the wind you have to go. West sail just is not a pointing machine. It just is. That's a fact, and especially when you get a little bit of chop. We're starting to get that chop at this point, but the method to my madness on this one is there's heavier wind further north, which is going to kick up more chop, which is going to make it harder to stay hard on the wind. South, we're staying kind of ahead of it in these lighter winds, and tomorrow, by the end of the day, the winds are going to shift out of the north, and so that's going to be throttle down, pedal to the metal, action. We are going to push this boat and see what we can do, because we've still got, 400 something miles to get to the Gulf Stream, and we're trying to now beat some weather. Again, like I said, hopefully that will change, but if it doesn't, we're gonna give ourselves the best chances possible, because we're basically gonna have about 48 hours to push this boat and try and get 150 miles per day on those, and then we'd be able to probably make it, depending on how tonight goes. But yeah, that's talking about like broad reaching with a drifter up, being bone in her teeth. It should be pretty good. It's gonna be a lot of pressure, but I know Old Sparrow can handle it. She's fit as a fiddle right now, and definitely, I don't want to bash her to bits by any means. I would only put the pedal down when we're more off the wind. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how fast we can get going, and if we're lucky, some of the currents will be kind of in our favor, kind of pushing us towards the Gulf Stream, and then we're aiming for right now going as close to the northern side of the Great Bahama Bank as possible, and then just pushing straight across, because it looks like if we do cross the night of the 26th, which is looking like we might be able to, it's going to be probably motor sailing across. It's about 50 miles and to get across the Gulf Stream, and we're almost level with Fort Pierce and that area, so it'll be like just gun across as fast as you can. Try not to lose more than 15, 20 miles, and then as soon as you get across, then you just angle down and go for it. I mean, usually when I come out the south side of the Grand Bahama Bank and hit the Gulf Stream, I let it sweep me up, but I almost inevitably get out of the Gulf Stream like 20 miles before or south of Fort Pierce, and then it's, then I'm kind of sailing up the coast slowly for hours and hours and hours, and it seems to take absolutely forever. But yeah, that's the game plan. Other than that, on the boat, man, we got another beautiful stargazing night tonight. Not a cloud, and I mean not a cloud in the sky. The crescent moon just dropped below the horizon, like a total thumbnail. Absolutely gorgeous. So I'm looking forward to that. The temperature is up. We're in the 70s. So we're feeling pretty good there. Still got the old sweatshirt on, but definitely only wearing a pair of shorts. I love it. And, the battery. So obviously, after running the engine for 6 hours or whatever, battery gets fully topped up. It takes a while, but we get up to like 13.9, I think. And I'm kind of like, okay, everything is out of the freezer. I made, we got the last pound of bacon came out. And since I don't need to have it, I kind of cranked the fridge down. It's on a scale of 0 to 7. I had it most of the day. Most of the time that I'm keeping stuff frozen, I've got it at like 5 or 6. And that keeps everything just frozen like a brick. But I think it also, as the frost and stuff builds up on the cooling plate, I think it becomes less efficient. And wherever the little temperature gauge is, the thermostat in there that tells it like kick on, I think that's malfunctioning, because I think it's just running like as if I just basically turned it on and kept it on. And so I cranked it way down and cranked it down to, I think, 4 or 3. And still right now we're at, excuse me, we're at 12.7, which normally under all the rest of the days, within, I don't know, an hour or so after the sun sets and the solar panel's not getting hit, it was down to like 12.4 or something like that. So I think that was my issue, is that the fridge was just ramped way up beyond what it actually needed to be. And so it was just running like a madman and just draining my batteries. I think that was all it was. It was just like, whoa. And I think the batteries were getting drained enough where it took absolutely forever to get them charged. But now after that full charge today, then when the solar was getting hit pretty well, they went right back up to like 13.8. So I don't know. We're going to have to sort of investigate. I don't think it's by any means time for new batteries. They're only like 3 years old or something. But I don't know. We'll just have to see. I will say, after another night of motoring, and there's been a million of these over the years, I'm going to start looking into what it would take and what it would cost to put an electric motor, full lithium, maybe a small generator. Probably not, though. Maybe just an auxiliary, little Honda generator or something like that. Something you could run if you really needed it to. And then just a little bit bigger of a solar panel, if I could find one of those 400-watt ones that would fit on the back. But electric motor, lithium batteries, and see if that's like actually a possibility. Because that would be, think about it, game changer. The only problem is, what's your range? How long can you actually, like, if I get becalmed like that, if I don't have a good 8 hours of life out of it, boy, that is a drawback. With the diesel, you got about, I don't know, I could probably run that thing for like 8 days, something like 10 days maybe straight. Something like that. I don't know. That's the thing. A diesel's just made, you turn it on and it'll just keep running and running as long as you feed it fuel and oxygen. Yeah, I don't know. But boy, it sure would be cool. To be able to just, I still remember being out there with Justin out in San Diego, and electric motor on that boat, and you put it into forward, and the boat started to move, and it was absolutely silent. Oh, that was absolutely amazing. So I don't know. It's definitely a thought. And if it's comparable to, repowering with like a Beta 38 or something like that, it's going to be a hard decision to make. I'm not going to make it right now, but it's going to be a hard decision to make. I do think the range thing is always going to be an issue. But again, if you were able to have a little tiny generator on board, but here's the thing, and that would, It doesn't even make you're exchanging one noisy racket for another noisy racket. Not that you would have to run the generator the whole time, but it might be one of those things where you got to run the generator for like an hour to charge up the batteries, and then you get like maybe 4 or 5 hours out of them. I don't know. That therein lies the question. How much battery life, how much range can you get out of that motor and still be able to run, your refrigerator and whatever else you need? Oh, we're starting to get our angle. Oh, no, we're not. Dang it. All right. It's time for our new segment tonight. Ooh, we got the Seven Sisters on the menu. The Pleiades. Oh, one of my favorites and one of the coolest little constellations up there in the sky. It's small, but it's very, very unique. All right, so the old Pleiades. Now, this one's pretty recognizable. Usually it's kind of following the east to west progression of the sky. Remember, it's all rotating around the North Star or Polaris that we talked about earlier, but this one's over by like Taurus and all that sort of stuff. Super easy to recognize because it looks like a little blob with a whole bunch of little pinpricks. It's really blue because they're all young stars. Typically with stars, as they progress in their age of billions of years, they go from like bluish like flame kind of to like white hot to then orange to then like the red super giant that's like on its way out, like Betelgeuse and all that sort of stuff, which we'll get into when we get into Orion. But so it's like a cluster, and there's like 9 actual little stars in there, but it's also known as the Seven Sisters, and it kind of the mythology around it. Or before we get into that, one of the really cool aspects when you look at it, it kind of looks like a bluish haze, and it's kind of has this. I guess when you take a picture of it with the time-lapse camera, it really comes out, but it's in kind of this bluish nebula cloud kind of thing. Not really a nebula, but I think it's just one of those weird anomalies out there in deep space. But you've got this cluster of these bright blue stars, and then you've got this kind of eerie blue cloud around it, which is what makes it pretty easy to find up there. But essentially, the Greek history of it is that the Seven Sisters were like these sea nymphs, and they were the daughters of Atlas. And I think I mentioned before talking about how Zeus was always, or not Zeus, but Orion. Orion the hunter was also, he wasn't just hunting animals. Let's just say that, if you know what I mean. He was all about the ladies, and the sea nymphs were not exempt from this. And essentially, because of their connections with Atlas and all that sort of stuff, they called upon Zeus, and Zeus actually ended up putting the sea nymphs up in the sky, giving them sort of this escape route to get away from Orion. And one of the cool things is Orion comes up, so the Pleiades, or the Seven Sisters, they rise out of the east first, and then right behind them is Orion. So Orion's constantly chasing the Pleiades all through the night, which I think is always kind of a neat little aspect of some of this Greek mythology and everything about these constellations. It's pretty cool. It's always pretty funny, but yeah, they are like it's a really neat little area to find, and then also to look at if you have a telescope. I mean, it's absolutely amazing, but even just with binoculars and stuff, you get to really see how many little tiny stars there are in that one. But just a couple stats on this. The distance of this little cluster is about 440 light years away, and its apparent magnitude, which I don't really understand, I guess is plus 1.6. I'll figure that one out. But yeah, it is a really, really, I don't know, it's just a unique little cluster up there. It's pretty easy to recognize. Again, it follows the east-west progression right along the ecliptic or the middle of the sky, the starry sky. And yeah, whenever you see that, if you see Orion, just follow the sky a little further, and then you'll see the cluster of the Pleiades. So hopefully you enjoy that little tidbit. Check it out if you're out there, and enjoy your evening. It is, I just popped my head up there. It is going to be a spectacular stargazing night. As long as we keep sailing, the wind doesn't die, and the waves don't build up to the point where I have to crack off like 20 degrees and head basically south-southeast. If I have to do that, I'm going to be pretty upset. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can hold ideally 200 degrees, which would be south-southwest, which would make old J-Rome very, very happy. I can hear the jib up there luffing right now. Urgh. That's all right, though. It is so stunning out there right now that I'm just going to make more coffee, and I'm going to go up, and I'm going to crank back in that beanbag chair. I'm going to crank some tunes, and I'm going to watch for some shooting stars and just enjoy with my little self-stabilizing binoculars. I know, super nerdy, but also super cool. Enjoy your night, everybody. Till next time. Oh, welcome. Welcome back to the Midnight Edition. The Midnight Creep. Not in a bad way. I'm not creeping around, but we are creeping across this ocean. Beautiful. Beautiful out. Super light conditions right now, but still hard on the wind. Still just moving, and I mean, in such a pleasant stasis aboard Mighty Sparrow for the last couple of days. Like I said a few days ago, we had sort of the quiet day, a lot of introspection, a lot of just in the brain thinking, all that sort of stuff. The last 2 days, day 10 and going in now, we just passed the midnight hour. And we're going into day 11 now, I believe, if my calculations are still correct. And the sunset that I got to witness out here was just, I don't know, it was gorgeous. It was, and there was nothing special about it. Other than the fact that it's out on the ocean, so it's unbroken. But, wow. My brain is running at such a low input level that I was so enamored just by looking at these colors. And it was one of those where on the horizon it was real nice deep red, and there was, a couple speckled clouds or whatever, and then, the colors went, yellow, orange, yellow, blue, and then darker. And I couldn't keep my eyes off it, and I couldn't stop smiling, and I wasn't really thinking about anything. I was just kind of enjoying being in and part of the sunset. I don't know. I know that might sound like I'm on some sort of drugs or something, but it was, oh man, it was enough. It was more than enough. And it was like a mainline intravenous dopamine hit that just went on and on and on for about an hour. I just sat there in the cockpit completely satisfied and just enjoying having my eyes open and being right there. I don't know. It was cool. It takes a while to get to this place. And I think it's just been hitting over the last couple of days. It's also real enjoyable sailing at this point. Just to give you an idea, we're on a starboard tack, so we're heeled over. which is always the best tack on Mighty Sparrow because she's essentially my twin bed. My bunk is on the low side. We're not heeled over excessively. We're not bashing into waves. We're not trying to hold a downwind position and every once in a while having to listen to the mainsail slat. We're pretty much just sailing very, very comfortably, and the motion of the ocean's pretty insignificant. Tonight, right now, I mean, we might as well be on rails, it feels like. And so that part of living at sea is very pleasant and makes, everything from cooking to sleeping to just lying in my bunk reading just really, really nice. And I don't know. I'm just trying to share the experience. When it's good, it's good. It's really good out here, and it feels quite lovely. And you realize that it's worth all of the pain in the butt. Super frustrating. The motoring, the trying to be off the wind, the ugly swell that's slatting the main, the gale, witnessing the power of the sea, the cold up north. I mean, now it's like 78 degrees. I could just be in shorts if I want, but I got my old Sailing into Oblivion hoodie available, link in the description, keeping me nice and warm. And it's just, I don't know, we're at a point where I'm kind of just catching up on a ton of sleep. Probably sleeping like 10, 12 hours a day in small doses, but, an hour or two here or there. It's pretty commonplace at this point to, especially with the calm conditions and the quiet sailing, to just the moment I get a yawn and my eyes get a little tired, I'm just creep down to the bed, hop in that sucker, lay down, and I'm out. I'm out real quick, and I wake up about an hour or two later, kind of look around. If it's pretty cool out, something sparks my interest, then, hey, I get up. Have some coffee, something like that. If not, I just go right back down to that bunk, sleep some more, or kick back and read. I'm about halfway through this book, and man, oh man, it's literally, to my brain right now, in low level input mode. This book, so it's Clive Cussler. The action is almost unbelievable. It's like watching one of those Mission Impossible movies or one of those Bond movies. You're just like, whoa, all right, so hold on. Wow. And you know how a book can really bring out the imagery once you really get into it. Like, I almost find myself getting a little overwhelmed, a little too much input. And I'm like, all right, I gotta take a pause on this. That was a hectic scene right there. But yeah, it's a funny thing, boy. I tell you, you take that equation of screens and the internet out of your brain for even just, I don't know, 10 days, and it's not completely gone. Obviously, we got the Starlink and stuff, but I'm obviously not using the Starlink for that. So even though that option is there, it's not a draw at all. I think there's been one time where I didn't really need to download the weather, wasn't really uploading anything, and I just turned it on. I think I used the excuse of an update in the weather, and I just kind of looked a little bit around, looked at some numbers, looked at this, blah, blah, blah. And then I was like, all right, 2 minutes later, I turned it off again. But other than that, there hasn't really been a huge, I'm not like, well, I could turn it on. I could watch something, da-da-da. And I've watched one movie so far on this trip, Hot Tub Time Machine, which always gets me amped up for the winter because sooner or later I'm going to get in. And sooner or later, I'm going to go back to Michigan and hopefully end up on the gigantic 450 vertical feet of the local ski resort. Whoa! Better get my chops up, get some new wax on the board. Yeah. Oh, it's just pleasant. It's really pleasant. We have had an uptick, obviously, in the traffic. Right now, we're about 300 something miles, almost due east of the Abacos. We're just about getting to their latitude. And yeah, the winds, I chose wrong. I chose unwisely a few days ago when I was making way down here and I was riding kind of the edge of this high pressure band. And when I was headed to the northwest on one tack, on the other tack, so it's not quite as comfortable for living aboard the boat. And I was headed into a bit more wind, and the wind shift would have been more favorable for my destination had I kept going that way. Now, I kind of looked and I saw in the forecast at the time that the wind shift was going to make its way all the way down to where I was anyway, and I would just be in a little bit lighter conditions, a little less chop, that sort of thing. And I was kind of like, well, I don't think it's really going to matter all that much. Well, it mattered. It mattered a lot. And as I kept making my way further south, the wind shift kind of stayed behind me and never really caught me. So, one day turned into two, and now we're still on the edge of this thing. Now it's shifting tonight. And every once in a while, that shift kicks in, and we're headed basically exactly where we need to go. And then it'll kind of wander back, and you're like, geez, we're going south again. And I'm headed into tomorrow. I might hit a calm patch I have to motor a little bit through. But then by about midday tomorrow, it's going to start blowing pretty good out of the east-northeast. And so I'm going to be on a downwinder for the next day or two. But our forecast keeps changing, and it actually behooves us now, and it's a better launch across the stream and into Florida. Not on the 26th, 27th, like I originally was gunning for, which would have been really tight. And man, I don't like racing against that sort of stuff because there's that old adage of like it's way easier to slow down than it is to speed up when you're in a sailboat, and that's 100% true. There's a maximum speed that you can really reach, and if it's going to be tight that you're going to make it anyway, chances are you're not going to make it because you're not going to go maximum speed the whole time. And if you need to slow down a little bit, that can be achieved very easily just by downsizing sails, although sometimes that doesn't really work because then the ride becomes very uncomfortable. But when you're going downwind, instead of running straight downwind or anything like that, you can jibe and broad reach and do all that. There's a huge amount of little tools you can draw on to be able to increase the length of your sail and slow yourself down, which essentially may be something that I might have to do because it was going to be blowing pretty hard, mid-20s, upper 20s for, it looked like originally like 2 days. This is far off in the extended forecast, but around the 28th, 29th. And that's kind of changed and dampered down like I kind of knew it would because it's pretty far south for that kind of behavior. And it looks like it's only going to do that for a day. And if I can position myself just south of the Abacos and Grand Bahama Bank, then I'm in very protected waters, sheltered from any sort of sea state that builds up. Obviously, I still got to deal with the wind, but that's not too big a deal. And, then the nice part is that thing kind of comes around. Oh, fight the yawn. Fight it! As that thing comes around, then all of a sudden I've got winds out of the south that are actually decent for a crossing of the Gulf Stream, and then they ease up just in time to pull into Florida. So it looks like right now, if the forecast holds, the 30th might be my destination date, which would put us at like a 16-day adventure out here, which is kind of crazy. Had I made one or two different choices as far as not just continuing south and taking the beating for a half a day or a day to go back towards the northwest to catch a better shift and heavier winds, probably would be either pulling in over the next day or two, but I would have at least cut off probably the last 3 days of this trip. We'll see, though. It's no big deal. It's not like I was in any big rush. The next commitment is until the 10th of December, so I've got a decent amount of time, and that's back up on in Massachusetts. That's the last commitment that I have for the year. That's I mean, outside of a few calls, connections, and consulting stuff like that. But as far as in person speaking, coaching, that sort of thing, that is it. That wraps up my 2025, and pretty excited about it. It's a double header. We're going to do 2 presentations at a school, and I look forward to that one because they have the auditoriums and stuff. But neither here nor there. We'll get into that when we actually hit the road. That's the game plan, is to do this last one via the great asphalt snake that rips across our great country, and have a nice 2-day road trip out, 2-day road trip back, and then be home for the holidays. Wow, it's all coming together so quickly, and then enjoy sort of the holidays. But like I said, we'll get to that when we get to it. Tonight, though, we have been seeing tons of shooting stars. We've got lightning way off in the distance. That is, I will say, the one thing that was kind of reassuring to me about the choice that I did make, because there was one night where it was tons of lightning, pretty substantial thunderstorms and all that sort of stuff up to the northwest, and that's where I would have been for sure. And that would have been a bit of a battle. Squalls, rain, lightning everywhere. So I was kind of glad that I remember thinking to myself, I'm glad I'm down here and not back up that way, because I don't mind that stuff, and it would have been kind of nice actually to get a rinse down on Mighty Sparrow. She's salty from the gale, because we haven't had more than just a spittle of rain on us. And careful what I wish for, though. Knock on wood. We are in the land of squalls. Squalls, rains, winds, sail changes, reefs, getting wet, all that sort of stuff. And I'm sure we will find ourselves in the middle of a downpour at some point before we make it back. But yeah, it's just absolutely lovely out there. I got the Dodger folded down, full sky view. Again, it's only blowing about 6 knots, and because we're hard on the wind, we're able to get that apparent wind up to, it's kind of feeling like about 9 knots maybe. And so it's been just quite lovely. I don't even I would think that you might be able to hear the contentment in my voice. Very, very content right now, and very calm, very serene. A little bit tired because it is clocking in 12:35 in the a.m. And I think one of the things that I have not done yet that I might actually do tonight if I decide to stay up and watch some stars is pull out the old World Band radio and see if I can tune in some far-flung stations in those crazy ranges of like 50, 64, point, blah, blah, blah. There's a really ancient band of I guess it's a high frequency. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's the old school radio waves that are still out there that are barely being utilized anymore, but you still can sometimes tune into some, I don't know, Middle Eastern, sometimes Chinese. You used to be able to get the BBC, and you used to be able to get the Voice of America on these. I haven't heard either of those in many, many years. Sometimes you get the only ones I think that are coming out of America are typically religious-based radio programs that are, I don't know, they're just getting blasted out there still over some sort of radio device. But I don't know. It's just interesting to be able to pick up something like that when you're way out at sea and that's your only form of communication. Way back in the day, it was pretty interesting because you'd come across like the news of the day way out there in the middle. I can very, very distinctly remember picking up stuff on the trip going around the world. I'd spend hours up there just twiddling that little knob and trying to tune in and find something and all that. It was always kind of neat. Something from a bygone era, I guess. But yeah, other than that, we're just cruising, and we're gonna keep on cruising, making our way. Our shift is coming, like I said, tomorrow. We're gonna start our final approach, where we will be essentially diving directly at our destination, still some number of hundreds of miles away, but absolutely beautiful. So we're going to take it all in. It's going to be the last ocean sail of the year, so try not to miss out on too much and sleep my way through it, but also I'm trying to get as much sleep as I can. I feel like I'm getting more rest on this trip than I have gotten in many, many years. And that's not just out at sea, but that's on land as well. So not taking that for granted, gonna use and abuse, and yeah, just try and enjoy my time. Hopefully anybody listening can also enjoy their time a little bit and remember to, as the holiday seasons come up, Thanksgiving, Christmas, that sort of thing, just remember, take it in. Few and far between. You don't get too many of these in a lifetime. And if you're especially around people that you love, friends, family, all that sort of stuff, don't take any of that for granted. You know, every once in a while you got tiffs. You have hard feelings, all that sort of stuff with the people you're closest to. Well, it's one of the best parts about the holidays is that it's a great time to make amends and be able to, I don't know, forge forward on a turn a page, turn a cheek, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, it's a great way to come back together. It's a great excuse to make a phone call. It's a great excuse to, just get back on that same page. So take that for what you will. It's Mighty Sparrow signing off. We did have shout out to what was the ship's name? It was like Red something or other. But I was just about to call them on the radio when I noticed they did a nice 10-degree shift in their course to go around the old Mighty Sparrow. So I just hit them up with the old quick. Thanks for the course change. Appreciate it, Mighty Sparrow. Stand by 1-6. And then all I heard on the other end was a chirp, so I think they just hit the button and said, yep. I probably should have done a radio check with them to see if my radio is not actually functioning all that well. But that thought didn't occur to me until they were pretty far away, and who knows. We'll have to do a little check ski on that. I mean, it was, as far as I knew, it was working earlier because I was picking up all the weather channels and all that sort of stuff. But neither here nor there. Thanks for listening, and until next time.